Today, we are honored to welcome Kelsey Green to the show today. She helps people stay focused, creative, and being able to be effective in their own lives. And what she focuses on mainly is digital minimalism. Now, this is a very interesting concept because I don't think it's talked about a whole lot. And it actually is going to affect our life in many ways because not only are we in like a digital world, but it's so many distractions in our world. And she helps bring a light to this so we can actually be effective throughout our lives. And she brings so many amazing tools. I'm very happy to have her on the show today. How are you?
Hey, I'm Anthony. I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me today. I am pumped to be here.
100%. I'm very interested to hear your story and how you got into minimalism and all things like creativity and mindset. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, my background is in environmental conservation. So both my master's and my undergraduate degrees were in, working with the environment. And that led directly to wildlife biology. And then I moved into nonprofits. And, I think nonprofits can do some amazing things in the world, of course, amazing people doing amazing things. It's also notorious for burnout. And I was working on really cool projects, but I was working all the time. And because the other thing that is common in nonprofits is not getting paid a lot, I was also running a side business. Right. And so that actually served me well ultimately when I moved into being an entrepreneur. I had a foundation set, but gosh, I hit a rock bottom of extreme work burnout, a physical rock bottom. I needed to have a major surgery, financial rock bottom. I was in a super toxic relationship. And throughout all of this, I was sort of getting stuck in that trap of having my notifications on, having my ringer on, answering texts and emails throughout the entire day, falling into the social media scroll, doom scrolling rabbit holes, right? Like a lot of people have either found themselves in or find themselves in currently. And to be honest, I have always been interested in, a digital minimalist approach. I've never owned a TV, like a monitor, a screen. I don't even know what it's called. Like I owned one of those VHS ones, like the big boxes, like in college, but I didn't grow up watching a lot of TV and to my mom's credit. And I've never really owned a TV. And when I see something like a movie on a big screen or someone's big TV. I'm like, wow, the quality is incredible. But the thing is, I don't need any more incentive to spend my time in front of screens. So I purposefully, don't purchase those items. And the place I've come to now is really helping people and myself too work on implementing these tools into their lives. And I'm realizing, it's really a baby step kind of approach to helping them to bring out, as you mentioned, their creativity, their ability to focus again, helping their mental health. And I think there's all kinds of amazing things that can come out of, putting some parameters and some boundaries on our digital use.
Absolutely. Great story. I appreciate you sharing that. So it sounds like you had a lot of distractions and it was holding you back, but you kind of realized it and you kind of put tools in place to kind of overcome that. Do I have that right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Out of curiosity, like, why don't you think this talked about a whole lot? Because I don't really hear it a lot, and I think it's so important. Like, how do we start to incorporate this in our lives and become more aware of what we're doing digitally?
Oh, that's such a great question. And it's also interesting because it really speaks to how we can all exist in these echo chambers, right? Because my community is not all of them, of course, but there's a lot of focus on minimalism in general. And I follow quite closely the ethical and moral conversations around AI and what's happening to humanity or, what may happen in the future. And I think you're right though. I think in general it's probably not talked about. However, I was pretty surprised when I first started this work. I started it and I still run these screen-free Sunday challenges. The level of interest that there has been in this, and I think people are really starting to feel inside themselves the issues that are arising from scrolling all day, watching Netflix, that kind of deep sense of longing for something better, for something more real, but they aren't quite sure what it is. And of course, the tech companies create these ultra addictive platforms, really kind of hacking your brain, right? Just to have you, you've heard all this stuff probably, to have you to keep scrolling, to keep doing the thing, to keep
Yeah,
engaging, right? So I think that the conversation, people are going to start hearing a lot more about it, I think, in the future, but I think there is interest.
absolutely. So out of curiosity, like how did this transform your life in a sense? Like what benefits have you noticed and what can people expect when they start to implement this in their own lives?
Yeah. So I will be transparent with you, Anthony. There are a couple of downsides, and I will talk about those.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not going to lie to anyone. There's some cons, right? But I think that the pros heavily outweigh, any of the, I'd say, inconveniences that might come from setting some parameters around your use. So basically, I started to look at, well, just to be honest with you, I was in a relationship where we both had businesses, but this other person just could not get off of his phone, right? And it was like we'd be having these deep conversations about our future, and his phone's like bling blong doopy dee 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 dee, these notifications. And here's one of the cons. I'll just tell you right now. Once you start reducing your digital use and managing your notifications, sound notifications, stuff that's popping up on your screen, it becomes pretty irritating when when everyone else's are going off. So that's something to consider. It just starts to seem really rude because the level of connection that you can experience in person really diminishes, right? But
Yeah.
here's some of the pros. So I thought I might be one of the women that was diagnosed with ADHD, later in life. This is a thing I've been hearing about a lot. I thought that might be the case for me. And so I thought, what if I start doing some of these experiments on my own brain where I try to be off my screens from like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So phone is in the closet, no computer, no Netflix, whatever, no streaming, and see what that's like. Right? Obviously, I'm asleep for a lot of that 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., but never, ever, ever having my phone in bed scrolling. We know that that's the worst, right, for your sleep, your mental health. So I started this experiment, and what I found was that I was able to sleep better, much more productive when I went to do my work. And then I started really being diligent about no notifications, no sound notifications, with the exception of my mom was going through a health crisis. So I had her as a call through, right? There's all these settings you can put on your phone. You can have a call through, whatever. And that meant that when I was trying to work, trying to focus, even trying to work out or do a hobby, go for a walk, whatever, I didn't have something fracturing my attention and pulling me away from the present moment, right? And it takes some work. It really does, right? Because we're so used to that compulsion now, and we've accepted it a lot of the times that we're just going to be looking at our phone a gajillion times a day. But when you take that away, you can really notice it. And it does take a little bit of work for sure.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that. I'm kind of the same way. Like I have no notifications on my phone and I really feel that helps you take back agency in your own life. Like if I check my messages, I do it on my own time. I don't have all these things distracting me. And on top of that, my phone is on airplane mode all the time, basically due to EMFs. I don't know if you know about that.
Tell me about
You know
it.
about EMFs? Like
No. Well,
electromagnetic
oh,
frequencies. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
And
Okay.
so it's like a productivity thing as well as like a health thing. And that's how I operate.
Oh, and how long did it take you to get used to that?
Honestly, like immediately, personally, just because like I just want to stay so focused on my mission. I just don't have time. Like I just see it as the right thing to do essentially.
Absolutely.
I mean, I
Yeah.
get like some people have like jobs where they have to, but it's like
Of course. Yeah.
Just do what you can, essentially, is a key.
I like that approach. Yeah, doing what you can because some people have kids, some people are on call, you know. But it's interesting because for most people, they're not a neurosurgeon and, you know, they don't need to rush to the hospital for work, right? Or what was interesting is that I thought the kids thing was going to be the primary excuse. But then I found that, you know, for like the screen free Sunday challenge, for example, parents would be at home with their kids on Sunday, still unwilling to get off their screens. Right. And it just kind of, honestly, I used to be really annoyed by it and I still am a little bit, but now I just find it kind of heartbreaking. Right. Because also parents are coming to me asking, what am I supposed to do about my preteen, you know, my teenager? They're on screens all the time. And there's a great book for parents out there, The Anxious Generation. It's a tough, heavy-hitting, data-driven book. It's a tough read, but if you have kids, critical reading, right? But I'm saying like I work with adults and let's try and get a handle on our use first, right? Before
That's
you
right.
can be telling your kids what to do, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta be the model and the example, because, like,
Yeah.
they're definitely not going to do what you say as much as do what you actually do. Like, because they watch you, and that's what's actually more important. Your actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing that I'm noticing and that the data supports is that the quality of your in-person relationships really does increase when you can put the phone away, literally out of sight. There's a academic study called the brain drain, which is about how if your phone is sitting next to you in sight, even if it's face down, or even if someone else's phone is sitting within sight, that your attention is just more fractured and you really are just not as present, right? So, you know, if we talk about baby steps here, putting your phone out of sight, obviously turning the sounds off, putting it out of sight, and then kind of fighting against that compulsion to check it, right? You know, and like I love how you said, and I haven't even talked about the other benefits, honestly, of putting your phone, say, on airplane mode or turning it off, right? That you mentioned, and that's great to note. But you know, just really fighting against that compulsion to check it all the time and setting up periods where you are checking it, like batching, like we would batch content, right? Or whatever, saying like, okay, I check my phone at 10 and I check it at 4, right? And one of my goals is moving that over to email, or I check email just once or twice a week. It's probably more of a long-term goal at this point, right?
Right.
But I'm like, I want to have intention, just like you said, around my digital use, and I want to be fully in control, have full agency over when I'm checking my phone, when I'm checking my email. If I decide to watch a movie, I'm doing it. I'm fully present watching the movie. Just as a quick aside, a little anecdote, when I first started the screen-free Sunday challenges, people have a hard time with it. That's 24 hours off screens. You know, it's got to be like people who probably already have a little bit of this practice going in their lives because it's pretty tough. But someone suggested, why don't you run like, you know, only 1 hour at a time or 2 hours? And someone else said, how about you do a only one screen at a time challenge? Like, wow, people are in deep, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how do you feel like these devices are impacting our relationships in a negative way, right? Because, I mean, it's kind of like the world that we live in, like we're going to be a part of it for the most part, but how can we keep healthy, long lasting relationships within that?
Oh, that's such a great question. Thanks. Yeah. So I have a course called How to Build Your Circle. And a couple years ago, I was sort of tiptoeing around the idea that, you know, to build in person community, you were going to have to limit your digital consumption and your community building online. And you know, you and I are connecting online, so many great opportunities. You know, I wouldn't be coming over to where you live probably to do this podcast. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm part of digital communities, masterminds, all kinds of stuff. I'm so grateful for it. But the problem is that as we increase connecting with people online, there's a, you know, direct correlative decrease to how much in-person community we have. And I believe that in-person community, in-person relationships is absolutely critical for our mental health. So the evolution of the course, How to Build Your Circle, now doesn't pull any punches. It's like you need to limit your time scrolling on your phone and get your ass outside and be talking to people like we used to do back in the day before phones. You know what I mean? Even
Yeah,
small, short interactions like with a rando at the grocery store, with your neighbor. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
yeah. And then to my point earlier, when you're actually with someone one on one or in a small group, I mean, fight that urge to to the death, if you will, within yourself to check your phone. Unless you're in the middle of an emergency crisis situation, in which case maybe don't go to brunch, right? But but really fight that and work to be present because our in-person relationships are crumbling.
Yeah.
They're disintegrating because it is, I heard a speaker say, we should normalize that it is a form of rejection when people are choosing to look at a Facebook notification over talking to you about what's going on in your life. And I fully believe that. It is a form of rejection for people to be looking at their phones when you're trying to connect in person.
Yeah. It's definitely reprogramming our minds and how we interact for sure. So just definitely got to be mindful of that. And also, it's like more so about not letting it control you, but you having agency over it. So you choose to do it, right? And that's definitely a different stance, whether this thing is actually pulling you to the device or you actually do it on your own time because you actually choose. That's a whole other thing.
Yes, absolutely. And that I think would segue nicely now into the point that sometimes people say, "Oh, you're talking about this stuff on podcasts or you're speaking at an online conference about it, right?" And one of the critical points here, and I think that your message aligns with this too, is I'm not telling anyone throw your phone in the river, bash your computer on the floor, never use it again, right? I'm saying let's utilize the tools as tools, right? Let's have the tools that we're choosing intentionally with agency to use support our values in life versus subverting them, right? So I'll just make some assumptions about you, Anthony. Like you seem very mindful about your digital use, right? As you told me, but you obviously are choosing to use these cool tools to help people, right? And
Yeah.
to share your journey, to help elevate other people and help share their journeys, right? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Use the tools as tools, right?
Absolutely. Use them
Yeah.
as a form of empowerment, right? You can like use social media to empower people, or you can just distract yourself endlessly. And the choice is ours at the end of the day.
Yeah, I totally agree. The metaphor I use often is, let's take a hammer. So a hammer can be used to build a house where you can have a beautiful life, provide shelter, provide refuge, have a sanctuary, right? And a hammer can also, of course, be used for serious harm to other people or yourself. And so I would never say, don't use the hammer to build the house. Instead, you're going to like, I don't know, find a little rock and use that or like
Yeah.
use your fist or try and figure it out. I'd say, absolutely, like use the hammer. But if it comes to the point where you are choosing to hang out with the hammer before your friends, family, before bettering yourself, or you're taking the hammer to bed, right? You can't stop looking at the hammer. The hammer now is kind of like controlling your whole life,
Yeah.
right? It's like that's a time to consider what's happening. This is supposed to be a tool that I utilize to make my life better, and now it's like taken over my life, right?
Yeah. It's just like a general principle. Like it's usually not about the tool. It's more so about how we use it in our own lives. So I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I'll just reiterate that it's not about ditching all these things. It's about let's really focus on using them with intention.
Yeah. I feel like something very in line with this, or maybe it's the same thing. You can let me know. It's like digital decluttering as well, right? it's like cleaning up things that just don't need to be there. Because if you think of like physical space, like what is in your environment that you don't need or don't want, just kind of like distracting you? Is that kind of the same thing digitally as well?
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because I think that's actually my winter project is realizing, oh my gosh, why do I have 20,000 emails in my inbox, right? What? Oh my, and then like, oh, my files are kind of a mess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my Google Drive's like all over I've got like just 5 accounts, right? And so my winter project will be really cleaning that up. Yes, and I think that's a great point. And also, actually, this is a little bit of a tangent, but you and I talked a little about minimalism in general. And one of my goals too is to have less words around. Like you've got your dish soap or whatever, and it's got a label. You've got all this stuff just like talking to you through labels and like marketing basically essentially, right? And I want to clear my space out of all of these things. I don't wear clothes with logos generally speaking that are visible. I want to have less like words and just noise in my life. I don't know, what do you think? I feel like you're sort of aligned with that too.
Yeah, I love that. It makes a lot of sense. I haven't really heard like of the less word thing, but that makes sense. It's like essentially having less distractions and things that can pull us away from our mission, right? And now being in life, we have to like learn how to adapt in a sense because that's kind of the world, but we also want to stack the conditions in our favor. Like don't like have things around, like don't distract yourself because you have enough of that externally as it is.
Yeah. 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 And I'd love to hear, how do you practice that too? Because I know you're so intentional
Yeah,
about your
with digital
environment.
minimalism, just I take the exact same approach as I do physically. Like I make sure everything is clean, everything is like organized, because essentially it's a reflection of your mind. Essentially, like becoming aware of your decision making processes, your values, your vision, and I say so many times, like your inner world is a reflection of your outer world. We can like take decluttering on another level and just go to your emotions and your mind, because that's really what it stems from, I believe. So I mean, that's the foundation. But physically, I know where everything is. I know what I need, what I don't need, and just make things so much more efficient. And when it comes to digitally, it's really the same thing. Like making sure my emails are online. I know what I'm going to do when I'm going to do it. That's the key. Like doing what you say when you're going to actually do it. Like keeping that integrity.
Yeah.
And I just like do a lot of recordings as well, but I know like when to get rid of them. It's the key is to develop your own system and your own process. And awareness is the first step because they're going to be in our environment. But essentially, if we don't know it, it's hard to become more proficient in decluttering, I find.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for a while I was really rocking the inbox zero, and that was phenomenal, right? Where every day you're starting with like 3 to 5 emails in your inbox, and those are emails that you like need to do something with the next day or whatever.
Yeah.
And otherwise you got zero. And I've got folders, of course, so everything's organized, but having inbox zero is like, whew, magic. And of course, if you don't have a system for doing inbox zero, it's gonna like be a terrible time waste, right? So you gotta like invest a little time, unless you're already there, to get to
Right.
that point. But the feeling of like finishing your workday and having zero emails in your inbox, woo, amazing.
Yeah, we can take the
Yeah.
same process to our phones as well, like our messages. And I feel like this kind of carries an energy to it as well. Like if your phone just full of things that aren't necessary and you just they're so old and it just there's an energy to that as well. So kind of like keeping your energy on point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess I know I know you're interviewing me, but I'd love to hear. It seems like, you just really implement a lot of intention in your life. Do you feel
Absolutely.
like that changes things for you in terms of the
Yeah, I
quality
mean
of your life?
that's so key. You have to live intentionally, right? Like becoming aware of your purpose, your values, like filtering your decisions through your values and what you actually want. Because I know what to say yes to, I know what to say no to, I know exactly what I'm going to do that day, and also like having the ability to adapt your goals, like all these things. It's like it's a process as well. It's like personal development, like really leave no stone unturned, right? It's becoming the greatest version of ourselves every day, health, wealth, relationships. That's all I do, straight up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think just to go back to the values discussion, So I follow this I follow speaker Cal Newport. He wrote the book Digital Minimalism. This can be a really scary title for some people, thinking that he's going to say, like, as I mentioned earlier, like, throw your phone in the river, like, whatever. But he is a computer scientist, right? So he's a prolific writer. Da, da, da. So he uses these tools all the time. The point that he makes is looking at your values, right? And as you mentioned, Anthony, I love that approach of, it's easy when you have your values front of your mind, right? And filtering your decisions daily through that. So if one's value is like wellness, like mine and yours, right? Probably if I want to sit on the couch and like eat a bag of Cheetos and a pint of ice cream, like, it's easy to decide if I'm going to do that or not, right? And I'm like, well, not to say there's not a place for having ice cream sometimes, but on a day to day, absolutely not. Like, my value is wellness. I gotta get to the gym. I gotta, like, I'm tracking my food, weighing my food, and, being very intentional at what I eat.
Yeah.
And it's easy to decide that, right? Like, what's going to happen day to day because my value is wellness. It's exactly the same with digital minimalism or digital boundaries. It's that, looking at what are the things you want to accomplish in your life, and is your use supporting that right now, right? So if you want to connect with people online, are you actually connecting with them? And I would argue, are you using the tool like Instagram or email, whatever, to try to create more opportunities to connect in person? You know what I mean? So it's like,
100%.
sometimes you can only connect people digitally, like, but for your friends and family, is it like, why don't you, instead of just randomly texting about nonsense, memes, or whatever, have a conversation, have a phone call, or
Yeah.
text about making a plan to like meet up, even if it's next year, right? Getting something on the calendar with them to connect in person, and like, yeah, use the phone to do that, right?
Right. Yeah, it's key. I love that you mentioned Cal Newport. He's an excellent author. I've read his books. He's definitely got a lot of information in minimalism space. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, amazing. Yeah, and I really like that he really doesn't and also a lot of thinkers are following the same approach, where they're not, like the Anxious Generation book too, they aren't really pulling any punches about how detrimental these platforms can be to our mental health, right?
right.
They're the data really does show it very clearly, and they aren't afraid to say it. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, just stacking conditions in our favor, like you said, with the values, it's so much easier to do it because it's like part of who you are in a sense. Like, these are things I do and things I don't do. It's very clear within yourself, so you have clarity externally as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
been kind of fun once you get past that little hump. Like, maybe it was easier for you. It sounds like it was pretty easy, but a lot of people have a really tough time with getting off of their screens at a certain time, going apparently even a couple hours being off their screens. But then it becomes pretty fun, right? And I'll just mention something. A few years ago, I thought there's these tools that can help you. I thought these were really stupid. Like, there's something called the RO box, which is an actual physical box. I think it's white. It's got like a wooden lid. It looks nice, but essentially it's just a charger for your phone that costs $100, and there's like a membership, you know, like monthly membership, and it tracks your time. So there's an app, and it tracks your time of how much RO box time do you have. And I think it was created for families because, like, parents, like, on their phones, when they're at home with their kids, and they knew that was problematic, but they couldn't figure it out on their own. So they got this box, and now they have like contests, like who has the most RO box time, which is the time that the phone is in the box, not in your hands. And
Yeah.
before I was like, that is so stupid. Like, I mean, bravo to RO, the company. Like, oh, you're probably making good money, as entrepreneurs, like, fabulous. But I'm just like, I was so irritated that people couldn't manage this on their own. Like, just literally just put your phone on a shelf. It's free. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you need to do. But now I think, honestly, because as I mentioned previously, and most people know, there's so many brilliant people working to make these things as addictive as possible. I'm like, yo, whatever you need to use to hack the system yourself, use it. So many great apps like Opal and I mean, there's I think probably hundreds of apps to help you kind of hack your own use.
Yeah.
There's another physical thing called the brick, where I think you have to have your phone like on that little brick thing to access social media. I don't know. I'm like, hey, whatever it takes for people. But what I would suggest is more so again coming back to looking at the ethos that you might want to sort of set up for yourself to manage it. And it might take some little apps and hacks and tricks or whatever. But if you can look at the larger picture of what you want your life to be, it's probably going to be a little easier than having to like fight with this like box. Like, who's going to win tonight? The RO box or me? Like, right?
Yeah, I get that. I love that. I mean, I think, as you said, I think these tools can be useful, especially if people are having a very difficult time, because it can be very difficult for people, especially like if they've been doing this for a while. And, these tools can be good, but I think it's important to get to a place where we are the tool and we don't need it, essentially, right? It can be like a training thing. And I think that's the most powerful thing we can do. And more power to people who actually kind of get results out of that. But, just kind of reframing things and doing what works for us is key.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll just give you another example. I have this mastermind for women, entrepreneurs, and creatives, and it's 6 months to help you kind of get to your goal, like your personal summit. It's called Summit in 6, right? And one of the pillars, okay, I did kind of code word this one. One of the pillars is focus. Excuse me. And what I mean by that is we're going to practice some digital boundaries, right? And initially, I feel like the group is accountable to me. They're accountable to their cohort. But ultimately, I want them to be able to easily manage this stuff on their own, right? Being accountable to themselves.
100%.
Sorry.
So I think that's really key as well, like being able to have that accountability. I think people can actually do that for us as well, like maybe help, not like with people around us, like friends, like let them know, like if this is something you want to work on, it's like they can hold you accountable as well. But it may be useful if they've done that themselves. So like look to people who have walked the path you want to walk on. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
the best path and it will get you the most results.
Yeah, definitely. And it's been interesting with the people in my life, right? Like, you know how it goes. The more that you lean into your own journey and not try to preach or tell people what to do with their own lives, the more that they will follow, right? So
Right.
now it's common for people to be accountable to themselves, like putting their phone away when we're together, not because they do that all the time, but because like they know it's like, you know, what I started doing too is just walking away. If someone's checking their phone in the middle of a conversation, like I'm just like, peace out, homie. Like just walk away. I'm like, it's so rude. If I was doing something else while we were talking, like that would be unacceptable. So, and I'm not like upset about it. I'm just like, well, you're clearly engaged doing something else. So I'm going to do something else too. And so people have started to be more interested in this. And, people are starting at different points. As you said, some people are on the phone literally constantly throughout the day, no break. On their screens, they've got DMs going throughout the entire day, phone. They've got their freaking smartwatch. They've got an iPad, a TV. They go to bed. There's no break for your brain, right? I have no idea how people manage their emotions, get creative things done, like have any spaciousness in their own brain when they have that much input coming in all the time.
Yeah. I don't think they do. And if they do, they can definitely exponentialize that by putting these tools into place. And you had mentioned how these people behind the scenes are working very hard to make you addicted to their product. And I can draw a direct parallel in terms of the processed food industry. Like we have food scientists, we have tools like a gas chromatograph, which basically mimics flavor. They can kind of like, because we have a process called nasal retrogradation, which is basically how we taste food. It's a whole interesting process, but they kind of mimic that in a sense. And this is why you have cherries that are made with artificial flavors, but there's actually no cherries in there whatsoever, right? And it's very interesting how they do that. So essentially, we want to stack the deck in our favor, right? Because we live in the
Hmm.
matrix, essentially, where we have all
Yeah.
these things kind of working against us, the systems.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, we can become aware of that and move beyond it, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah. I think that's a great example too, because if you, presumably you have, but maybe you've been eating well for a long time, but if people can, have modified their diets and they now eat pretty healthfully, whatever, right? It's like when you have those artificial flavors, you're like, oh God, that's so chemically and sweet and
Right.
whatever. And you just get used to eating healthy stuff, non-processed food,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, it just becomes your norm, and then you have like a banana and you're like, "Oh my God, that's so sweet. I can really eat that damn banana," right? If you've gotten off sugar before, you know what I mean, right? You have a piece of
Yeah.
fruit in the summer, a ripe piece of fruit, and you're just like, "Holy shit, this is
Yeah.
so incredible," right? It's kind of like that with digital boundaries too. Once you
100%.
start going down the path, you start to like really get excited about and get used to having your own brain back, you
Yeah.
know? So I'll just give you the example of the screen-free Sunday challenges. Even for me, being off screens totally, and I turn my phone off. So it's like, there's no like call throughs coming in. And I just tell my mom if there's an emergency, I give her the number of my neighbor. My neighbor can literally come over to my house and get me, right? So that takes a little bit of like courage because that's the one situation in my life that really does give me a little anxiety about being off my phone, right? But anyway, so you go 24 hours and I go 36 hours in these cases. So at like 7 p.m., like say Saturday night, off the phone, and then I don't get on it till 7 a.m. Monday. So that's even more than 24. But the thing is, it's like when on that Monday, when you go to turn stuff back on, like I obviously, you and I both love podcasts, I presume. So I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts like in the morning. But when I go to turn on the podcast just out of habit, I'm sort of like, wait a minute. I kind of miss with someone else's voice always in my ear. I kind of missed that spaciousness to sit with my own thoughts and my own brain. And I find myself often turning the podcast back off for a little while, at least while I can like get myself ready for the day, do my morning routine. I use a paper planner called a full focus planner. It's pretty intense daily planner. And I have digital calendar, right? So I reconcile those two, but it's like spend some time in the planner, plan out your goals for the day, plan out your calendar, plug in all the times for your meals, when's your unstructured time, all that stuff, right? And then I feel so much more centered and ready for the day. And then when I do decide to listen to a podcast, it's like, yeah, woo, it's like a little treat, you know?
Love that. Yeah. It's like digital fasting in a sense, and giving us like a pause. Like 'cause I'm listening to things a lot, but I also have that spaciousness where, it's really important to contemplate things and have thoughts of your own. Like sometimes I just like think of personal development concepts, like stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? Something like that. And then I kind of like think how I can improve upon that, kind of move the mission forward, like contemplate things. It's like the lost art of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah,
Seriously.
absolutely agree. And oh, and this is a little heartbreaking to talk about too, but I feel like what's happening with people now is they have so much input coming in. We know that social media, and I mean my social media feed is so heavily curated. It's almost all personal development and business stuff. So it's like I say, well, I do some fitness stuff too. So that's possible. Getting into that kind of stuff could make you feel kind of shitty about yourself, but okay, whatever. But in general, it's a pretty healthy feed, I'd say. But we know that can impact people's abilities to have a perspective about the world, right? Of
Yeah.
course, the filters and all this stuff. But the point I want to make is that similar to yours, when you have all of these inputs coming in all of the time, it's kind of hard to tell if you are dissatisfied with your life, and it's also gobbling up the time that it would take you to make some changes, right?
Yeah.
So I think presumably people always stayed in situations where, unhappy marriages and where they were just gaining weight and didn't know what to do about it and kind of falling into, this kind of complacency place, right? But I would argue that when we're caught in these digital traps, this can happen a lot faster and keep you from making the changes that you want to see in your life to better your life.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Also feel like, oh, there's a point I wanted to make prior to how everything is kind of like being hacked by the scientists and all that. Like when it comes to nutrition, like our taste buds do change over time, right? Because they're actually hijacked right now based off of processed food. And we don't know it in a sense. And it's not natural to be like, because we only have this one flavor sensation of like sweet. We just hit the sugar and the sourness doesn't really taste good to us at all. But things like different flavor sensations or talking to people or not, these become more. It feels right in a sense. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it just feels like it's something we're supposed to do, and we get shut off of that with all these like strange signals. And there's another concept of like post ingestive feedback, which is basically how if we consume a food, our body like takes notes on it, which is basically telling us the nutrition components of it because flavor is an indication of nutrition. And I was thinking about like how the tech comes to that, how like because our signals of like what is real and what isn't is just kind of cut off. We're not really connected to what is real anymore. And I was going through my head when we were talking about that.
Yeah, like you're talking about kind of losing perspective completely on like our
Right.
brains just taking this into like this is our new reality essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I love the parallels with nutrition, right? Because it's sort of like if you if you are eating processed food all the time, right? Like I know you seem like very educated in nutrition, right? But it makes sense, right? That you'd of course then prefer more of the same, like more
Right.
processed food,
Yeah.
right? And keep doing that. And like a really healthy meal is going to taste like shit, probably. Even though your body's probably like, woohoo, like the
Yeah.
actual nutritional value, but you kind of hijacked your taste buds to think that this is tasty food. And it's very similar with digital use. It also I think it makes your brain think that this is important too, like to keep up and keep going. I took a break from social media for 3 or 4 months, and I am not like a heavy user by any means, but I took a full break. And when I got back onto it, it was like reading the board minutes to an organization that you have nothing to do with. You're like, this is so boring. Like, I don't give a shit about any of this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I was like, why did I ever care? Why was I ever spending so much time on here? Like, this is so dumb. The one thing I will say is that I follow and support a lot of local organizations that have fundraisers or work days or, whatever. And because obviously social media is so prolific and such a effective marketing tool, a lot of them are not posting in other places now. So I'm kind of missing some things in my actual local community, which is a little bit of a bummer. But of course, there's ways around that. So in November, I'm going to do a no scrolling, no streaming month. So no streaming services, just, reading and thinking, and no scrolling, but I'll be posting through to my Instagram and to stories. And I'll also be tracking because, I presume you too, I have business colleagues and we all, I want to support them. I want to support local orgs. So the way to get around that is just sit on your desktop and bookmark these things, have your little list and just bam, 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 go through it, right? Or if I follow certain thinkers that are posting on social, or like I follow the Andrew Huberman Lab, podcast, Like, he's got some great stuff on there. He just interviewed Stephen Pressfield, who is 82 years old, and just killing it. Still writing books, working out every day in the gym, just amazing, smart person. And it's like, wow. So it's like, these are the kind of things like I'm still interested in checking out. So I'll just have it on my desktop bookmarked, go check it out, get off. No scrolling, right?
It's a good strategy. It's like having principles in place and a framework of how you do things. It's really important too. So
Yeah, I agree. The framework, right? Yeah. Do
it's
you
like
have frameworks for other stuff in your
absolutely
life?
like I mean, how you do anything is how you do everything. I think like cultivating a standard of excellence in how you do things is very important. Like knowing like your modus operandi, right? Your chief aim of how you do things. And like I feel like if you want to develop mastery in something, it's good to like follow one or two people in a given area
Yeah.
instead of like just being like sporadic. I mean, of course, like listen to podcasts and read books, but like I just find like coming back to like one or two people in a given area is like how you develop mastery. Because
Yeah.
everyone has like different teaching styles and things like that. So
Yeah. Can I ask you a little bit of a personal question and you can just cut this part out if you want.
go
But
for it.
so, I talk about digital minimalism and I talk about relationships, right? And these are very integrated. But I'm wondering when you started your journey and you really started leaning into personal development, personal growth, did you see your relationships change with who was in your circle?
Absolutely. I mean, that was like one of the first things. Because again, like this encompasses everything: health, wealth, and relationships. And of course, there's so much more. But as you start to change, like you can have one or two reactions. Like people are going to be on board with it, or they're not. It's really that simple. And it's not like you just go cutting people off. I don't really like
Yeah,
that. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes
right.
it's necessary, but it's really you have to adjust the relationship in a sense, like how you spend time with people. And it's more so about in the time, like the amount of time, right? So, but here's the thing: as you get better, you make everyone else around you better. That's the thing you have to keep in mind, and look to add value to people around you. And you have to cultivate that within yourself first. It's within all of us, we all have an inherent value, and cultivating that by overcoming ourselves, like our old beliefs, our old patterns, and really stepping up to the plate in our own life. And then that's how we attract those type of people as well. If you want to be around great people, you have to become it, and it's a process for real.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess one of the downsides of creating, some boundaries in your life is around digital use is that some of these relationships that are purely just social media relationships, like where you just like each other's stuff, it's kind of this unspoken agreement. You're going to like my stuff. I'm going to like your stuff. We're going to like chit chat over social. Those are probably going to drop away pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And I would just echo your sentiments about when you start down a personal growth journey, you might end up losing some friends, not because you, like you said, not because you cut them out. And for me, it was an entrepreneurial journey as well. Definitely lost a lot of friends. Never thought it would happen. But some, they just kind of fell away. And I had heard about this. I had heard a lot of business people talk about this and people in the personal development space talk about this. And I was like, yeah, but your friends probably weren't like as evolved as mine and as smart, whatever. And then sure enough, it happened like almost, like you said, almost immediately, especially when I stopped drinking, like, and I was like, wow, that was true.
Yeah.
Like that did happen and it made me really sad for a long time, but the point I'm making is that, you're going to have some superficial relationships probably start to go by the wayside. And that one of the arguments that Cal Newport makes is like, well, maybe question how deep those relationships were in the beginning, you know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I probably started the process when I was like 15, honestly. And basically, you have to be willing to walk alone sometimes. Like, it may take a while. And you develop like yourself within that process, like being in solitude. It's okay, like developing who you are, your thoughts. Because a lot of us, we don't know who we are really because, like, the Matrix, essentially. We're talking about like all these distractions, whatever it is, it's like, and as you start to develop a more powerful presence within who you are, you kind of repel the things that aren't of greatness and you start to attract the things that are and just be a light wherever you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Totally agree with that. Yeah.
Lastly, I want to mention, so I feel like it's very in alignment. It's like, let me know, but it's like digital clutter or minimalism. It's essentially what you're doing on the internet, right? Are you, because it's filled with absolute distractions, or you can actually be like adding a ton of value to the situation.
Yeah.
And like, whatever it is, like, are you doing generative actions or degenerative actions? And that's
Yeah.
very much in alignment with like, because the more powerful actions that you take, it's going to be built off a foundation of like structure, organization, minimalism, like things we're talking about. Do you want to talk about that all?
Yeah, well, I think I'll just refer back to the example, metaphor that we talked about earlier, which is the hammer. So, are you building a beautiful home, or are you bashing someone's head in with a hammer? That's pretty like rough example, I guess, a little visceral. But there's some dark ass shit on the internet. Oh my God, obviously everyone knows that. And there's some really terrible stuff that's going on. Does that mean never use the internet? No, of course not. But you can absolutely also be a force for good, right? So the time that you intentionally are showing up in this space, is it to help people? Is it to make the world better? Right?
Right.
So I absolutely agree. Like, let's show up and make things better in this space that has done so much good. Absolutely. Like, never denying that tech has done great things for us. And let's like lean into the light of that, the possibilities for this space, and absolutely never be feeding the darkness in it.
Yeah. And it all starts with our intention and our values, right? Because that's going to be leading to how we use that tool as a form of empowerment or destruction. And it really starts with us at the end of the day.
Yeah, agree. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Anthony, so cool to talk to you. And like, to be honest, I talk a lot more to women in this space. And it's so cool and like refreshing to meet a guy, a man that is in touch with himself and this journey that as you are. So that's been eye-opening for me. Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it's a mission, bringing tools of wellness, personal development, people to become the greatest versions of themselves. And it's what it's all about at the end of the day. And Kelsey, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on the show today, sharing all your insights with us, your story, and really bringing this concept of digital minimalism to light, because there's so many things that we can get wrapped up in and distracted with. But if we can actually develop systems and stand from a place of empowerment and education, that's what it's all about. So appreciate you coming on and sharing all your insights with us. Again, it's been awesome.
So fun. Thank you, Anthony. And thanks to your listeners too. And I just appreciate the work that you're doing in the world. So
100%.
thanks.
Likewise. And I know people are wanting to get connected with you and your work. So where can we go to find that?
Absolutely. So very easy. Kelsey L Green, L like lemur, kelseylgreen.com. Same handle on Instagram, Kelsey L Green. And I'm on LinkedIn too. So check it out. I've got the ongoing screen free Sunday challenges if you want to challenge yourself. And for the women out there, I run that Summit in Six Mastermind, and I do one on one coaching primarily around building in person community as well, and bringing your creative projects to life. So basically, living a better life, right?
Awesome. All right, Kelsey, appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks a lot.